Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me once again for another edition of Electric Avenue's YouTube updates. We are almost at the end of June 2023. This is for June 30th, the releases for June 30th. What's new in the store this week is what I'll be running through and then giving you a little mini review of one of my personal favorite albums. And as I say, I try to pick things that we have in the store. So, anyway, thanks for joining me. It's been kind of a crazy week. We're still dealing with smoke here on the East Coast, lingering in the air. So, if I pass out, you'll know why. No, God, let's hope that doesn't happen. All right, so smaller list of releases this week. This kind of is as we head into 4th of July weekend, tends to be a little bit on the lighter side. Still some good stuff. And then next week, which is July 7th, is a fairly big week, I think. So, anyway, so let's get started. So, the first thing I have to show today actually is a reissue. And the reason I'm showing it is because I think this has been fairly sought after for a little while. And I'm glad to see them finally doing some of these things. And this is maybe the first of a few. Phish, Farmhouse. Phish, sort of the 90s answer to the Grateful Dead, I suppose. I mean, that's what a lot of people like to call them. This is their album from 2000, so sort of the end of their, what I guess I would call the Imperial phase. But anyway, these are all individually foil stamped and numbered. So they are basically limited. I don't know limited to how many. This is their 9th studio album, and the sticker says limited edition Northern Lights 2 LP 180 gram audiophile color pressing, mastered for vinyl at Bernie Grunman Mastering, and individually foil stamp number. So color vinyl. The Phish albums are never cheap, so be prepared for that. But yeah, it's good to see that back on the market or in the market. I don't think I've actually ever seen that on vinyl before, so I wouldn't delay because we're getting a fair quantity, but I can't say like how fast they're gonna go. And then I don't know if we'll be able to get them again. Another sort of interesting reissue this week, Frank Zappa, Funky Nothingness. So this is an album that was actually an unreleased record. You can see there if you want to freeze frame, you can read the titles. But this is Frank Zappa's lost album from the vault, considered the sequel to Hot Rats and the predecessor to Chunga's Revenge. Contains mostly unheard material recorded with a small core group featuring Don Sugarcane Harris during early 1970, pressed on 180 gram black vinyl. So it's basically an unreleased album. It does have a basement version of Chunga's Revenge that's about 9.5 minutes long. 12.5 minute version of I'm a Rolling Stone. Anyway, and another 12-minute version of Charlena, 1970 record plant mix. And the last song, Twinkle Tits, which is 11.5 minutes long. So, oh, Frank. All right. And there are new releases this week of new records as well. I mean, I suppose the Frank is new because it was unreleased, but new Lucinda Williams. Stories from a Rock and Roll Heart. This is her first album of original material, new, since early 2020. At that stage, we had just entered the pandemic. Her album, I can't remember the title, was very political. It was great, but it was very political. And she also had just had a stroke, or was, I think maybe she was sort of on the cusp of it somewhere. And since then has had more difficulty sort of navigating the stage, walks with a cane usually, but and isn't playing guitar, but is still singing and sounds great. and more power to her, I think. And in the meantime, during the pandemic, she released all of those covers albums, and but there were six of them, I believe. There was Tom Petty, Rolling Stones. There was some tributes to Southern rock or sort of Southern soul. So a lot of different things that she was. Bob Dylan, she did cover. Anyway, this one features the song New York Comeback and the song Stolen Moments. This is the indie exclusive cobalt blue color. And I suppose a thing of note on here that people are talking about a lot, and it's funny how he's not mentioned in the credits here, but Bruce Springsteen appears on at least one song on here. So that's sort of something to take note of, I suppose. All right. Another one of my favorite kind of, I can't really call her Southern because she's from Canada, but singer-songwriter Nico Case. And that's her right there. I think this is sort of an older photo. But this is Wild Creatures is the name of the album. Explore Wild Creatures, a double LP showcasing Nico Case's 20 plus year journey as a trailblazing solo artist. So sort of a best of. Embrace her fearless spirit and poetic soul through haunting ballads and defiant anthems, featuring the new original song Oh Shadowless, accompanied by a short essay and insightful liner notes on limited edition color vinyl. Nico has one of the most like kind of amazing, soaring, haunting voices from the north. As many great female Canadian artists have been just from Joni Mitchell, Katie Lang, and she was actually in a little band sort of collaborative with Katie Lang for a minute, and Laura Veers, and that was one of my favorite records that year it came out. So, it's been maybe 4 or 5 years since Nico had a solo record, and she's in the band New Pornographers, and they just released an album. So I suppose she's more focused on that right now than her own new material, but obviously she's been working on stuff. So, yeah. All right. Khruangbin and Nubia Garcia. This is a live record. This is the second in a series of 5. And the first side of the record is like Nubia Garcia. I think that's how you say that. Sort of like solo material, I suppose, with Khruangbin accompanying, and then the second side is Khruangbin. So this is kind of a series. I think they said they're doing 5 of these albums, just to kind of give people a sense of what that band is like live, and other collaborations and things that they've done. So, Kesha, Gag Order. It's kind of ironic that it comes on the heels of her and Dr. Luke finally, I guess, settling their case. I haven't really read the specifics of it. But I don't know. Everything is sort of backwardsy. So a little, you have to kind of use your brain and read backwards, I suppose. But produced by Rick Rubin. So I would say, Kesha, people believe in her talent, and she's obviously made enough money off of the early pop stuff, I would guess, to be able to work with Rick Rubin, although I don't know what sort of deal they work out. But, Rick, I'm sure he's not cheap. And she was featured on some, I think she was on the 60 Minutes report on Rick Rubin. She was kind of interviewed a little bit for that. So kind of actually anxious to hear that, see what's going on. This band is a great British band, The Heavy. Their new album, Amen. Sort of a soul throwback type group. This is limited edition yellow vinyl, Hurricane Coming, and I Feel the Love. I suppose my only criticism of it would be it's a little expensive, and that's because it is made in the UK, and it seems like everything coming from the UK is more expensive right now. And there's a song called Bad Emma Effer on here. I try to not throw in expletives on my videos just in case kids are watching these things, but it's kind of funny. All right, Nas, King's Disease, Volume 3. Oh my gosh, Nas is having a super renaissance right now. Not only as are his early albums extremely revered, extremely popular, sold a ton during the pandemic, but now he put out what, 4 albums in the last 2 years, I think. Most of them came out last year, but he had King's Disease. One was sort of like people were okay, and then 2 and 3 were really highly praised, especially I think number 2 and number 3 is supposed to be really good too. I haven't heard this, and I will be the first one to admit that. And I guess also his album Magic was very highly praised too in there. And my hip hop fans love this guy and love these new records that he's doing. This is a limited edition color. It says limited edition color vinyl on there. It doesn't tell you. I think it's a black and red sort of blotch kind of thing going on. But anyway, that's a pretty good picture right there. Yeah. Record Store Day Essentials. There's a couple of new ones here to mention. There's Sly and the Family Stone's Fresh, which I think is a slightly, I want to say it's one of his later records. Yeah, 73. So one of the last, I guess, before he kind of sort of self-imploded. I don't know. But I mean, he's still obviously around. Not making records really that I know of, but maybe he is. Avett Brothers Emotionalism. This is actually available. I think is still a regular pressing, but this is a sea glass blue vinyl, limited. I don't know. I think they're about the same price actually as the regular edition, but I'm not sure. And then another one sort of in that series, but it's more of an RSD Essential. It doesn't really say it on the cover, but Trust. This album I think is pretty meaningful to like people who follow indie stuff. This record came out in 2012. There might have been original pressings out there that were sky high in price, but anyway, that's what we have a reissue then. Yeah, another cool reissue. I love this cover. Sun Ra, the Sun Ra Orchestra basically, and his Interplanetary Vocal Orchestra. Space Age is Here to Stay. And this is the first ever collection of orchestra vocal tracks, 2 LPs of vocal performances, audible perfection, featuring album art interpreted from the work of the father of modern space art, Chesley Bonestell, and has extensive liner notes pressed on colored vinyl. I hope it's like yellow or something like that. I don't know, but it's great cover art. I remember seeing this on CD like a year or two ago, but I don't know if it had been on vinyl until now again. Another reissue, sort of. Charlie Watts, R.I.P. Charlie. This is an anthology. So they picked out a bunch of stuff that Charlie played on in his jazz career that they wanted to highlight. Charlie's solo jazz recordings, I can't say that, anthologized, it's early, and including an extended essay documenting his love for jazz and time spent as the drummer of Rolling Stones. BMG put this out. Yeah, here's a track list there for those interested. All right. Let's see. Graveyard. Lights Out. I'm not going to describe this too much because if I start getting into metal and my metal fans watch this go, you have no idea what you're talking about. I don't want to be criticized for that. So I will just say this is a strictly limited edition black and white split vinyl on Nuclear Blast. All right, and I don't know where this lies in their catalog. It says 2012. I know it's one of their more highly revered albums, but yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I know what that's all about. Alex G, Philadelphia's own Alex G. He just released a record last year. It's like God Save the Animals. It was a really great album. And obviously, the theme sort of continues here. The cool thing about this, Philadelphia fans, is this is live at Union Transfer. So if you happen to go to one of the shows, here's a document of what you saw. And if not, it's kind of a cool, like, keepsake, whatever. But it's a great album. Tangerine vinyl, limited hand numbered edition. So there's that. Where the number is, the cover is really dark. Oh, there it is. This is number 1450 out of 3500. Yeah, it was recorded live November 18th, 19th, and 20th of 2022. So sort of a composite of the nights, I suppose. All right. I think that sort of does it for new release vinyl. CDs, there's not a whole lot, but I do have the new Grateful Dead on CD. This is live at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., June 10th, 1973. One of the most exciting, inspired, and powerful performances of the Dead's entire career, and mastered by Jeffrey Norman, produced for release by David Lemieux. And he's the one who's quoted there. This is a 4-disc set. And ends with Not Fade Away and Johnny Be Good. Begins with Morning Dew, Beat It On Down the Line, Ramble on Rose, and Jack Straw. 4 discs. This is coming out on vinyl, peeps, at the end of July, near the end, somewhere in the middle end. And it's, I believe, it's under $200. It might be like $175 or $180, something like that. Don't quote me. But the vinyl is obviously a lot more than a $40 CD. But I'm sure it's beautiful. The Dead, the people who've been handling their catalog lately, have been doing really nothing but beautiful work. So I think that that's something to look forward to. Okay. This is probably going to be a shorter video today because, like I said, I just don't have as many new releases this week. And I want to talk about this album a little in depth without getting, like, buried in it. But here. So, I've been choosing a lot of new records to highlight in the store. Last week was Portishead self-titled, and going back to like Goldfrapp and some of those earlier records, Depeche Mode and The Cure. And so today I thought I saw an ad for this coming out as a deluxe edition soon. There's going to be a 4 LP set with some rarities and things on the extra records. There's going to be a Blu-ray with an Atmos, a Dolby Atmos version in there. And the vinyl itself, the record will be, they'll be putting out a half-speed master edition of that. And it's also, I think it's going to be available on its own as a half-speed master. Sort of like what's going on here where I'm pointing with the Tears for Fears, that particular album, their first album, which, you know, The Hurting is a great record. And so I'm glad that they're picking some albums from the early 80s to do. And my pick this week is ABC's Lexicon of Love. I was just talking with a friend about this the other night, and we sort of got into a discussion about it because it gets praised a lot, and I think rightly so. I mean, there are many ABC records, and some are better than others. None of them are outright bad. In fact, they're pretty fortunate in the fact that they've really never had a bad record. I would say the second album, Beauty Stab, was polarizing, but not bad. It was just more rock and kind of not what people wanted after this. It was a case of sophomore slump. It was a case of trying to probably change too much too fast. And not only did they sort of shoot themselves in the foot, but after this album came out, the drummer quit, and then eventually he became a session drummer for other people. That was David Palmer, and he did like the for a while. Then the sax player quit after the second album. That was Stephen Singleton. So that just left Mark Fry and singer Martin. I'm sorry, I said Mark Fry. Mark White and singer Martin Fry to carry on as ABC for a while. That went on for about 15 years, and then Mark White decided to opt out, and it's basically been just Martin Fry and session musicians ever since. But he's still out touring and doing great performances and plays this album a lot. He did a sequel album a few years ago called Lexicon of Love 2, which was good, not quite as good as this, but they did bring back Ann Dudley, who was is a famous orchestrator for pop stuff, and mainly. And the only thing is Trevor Horn didn't take part in that reunion, but Trevor Horn was the producer on this album. You might know him from the Buggles video Killed the Radio Star, as he was the singer and writer of that. He also was the singer and producer, sorry, for Yes's Owner of a Lonely Heart and the 90125 album. He was sort of in and out of Yes for a while. Produced and kind of conceptualized Frankie Goes to Hollywood's big Welcome to the Pleasure Dome album, and then eventually kind of got Seal's career more organized and off the ground, and produced the first couple Seal albums, and done many other people along the way. But anyway, one of Trevor's biggest accomplishments as a producer was Lexicon of Love. These guys, ABC, came out of Leeds, England, UK. I'm sure that all of my British viewers know way more about this than I do, especially if they're from that area. But they kind of started a band called Vice Versa, and then Martin Fry was a journalist and sort of joined, and it's amazing, these guys that were journalists, him and Neil Tennant in particular, I think of, that were like such huge pop fans, music fans, that kind of got into bands and then like came out with sort of iconic vocals of their own. And Martin has this very suave kind of vocal, but punchy still. There's sort of a power behind it, more than maybe Neil Tennant's is a little lighter sounding. But anyway, this is a great album. It sort of bridges the line between the disco movement that was dying out and rock music. It kind of gave that dance side a more punchy, muscular, rhythmic edge to it. And Trevor's production on this was pretty flawless, and it's always been sort of revered. The two big hits on it that everybody sort of knows are The Look of Love, and the other one being Poison Arrow, and which featured none other than Lisa Vanderpump in the video. And if anybody watches Beverly Hills Housewives, you'll know who I mentioned there. But anyway, when the album came out, I didn't hear it right away because I was young and I was still buying singles. And when I finally got to hear the album as a whole, I was blown away by like sort of the narrative that's created throughout. It really does kind of feel and play sort of like the story and the album art. And there's a lot of like really, I think it's interesting songwriting. Lyrically, the rhymes and everything are just kind of almost too spot on to be like, is this a debut? Who came up with this as like a debut record, and it's catchy. I suppose it's music that you could almost dance to, a lot of it, and well, you could, but it's also got kind of a depth and a heart that a lot of other 80s, especially like, synth pop kind of stuff, didn't have. I kind of would put them in more of a like a Roxy Music if they were a little more for the dance floor, probably on this album. Like I said, the next album was much more rock, and then the next album after that, they had to like regroup, and that's when they sort of did a whole cartoon theme and went way super dance floor with How to Be a Millionaire, a Zillionaire, I think was the album. Anyway, so this opens with Show Me, which is like a great kind of like orchestral rock kind of pop song. And it goes through a lot of different sort of moods, followed by Poison Arrow. Many Happy Returns is a very catchy kind of song. And one thing you notice on this album as you go through, not only are the bass and drums amazing, the string arrangements amazing. I said the bass and drums. The bass in particular is absolutely amazing, and I think Trevor might have had something to do with that because he's such an amazing bass player on his own. Tears Are Not Enough was an older song of theirs a little bit that kind of got dropped into the track list, and then Valentine's Day has a lot of kind of sort of interesting rhyme sequences. Side 2 starts with the look of Love, followed by probably my favorite song on the album, actually, which was not a single, Date Stamp, which has this kind of weird, almost like a reference to Pink Floyd's Money, or the OJ's, with their kind of clinking cash register sounds, and this great vocal duet with this kind of a session singer in the UK named Tessa Niles. On the album, she's credited as Tessa Webb, and she played or sang with tons and tons of people. Anyone that you could think of from the early sort of 80s that had great backing vocals, she was on their record, whether it was Duran Duran, Annie Lennox, I mean, she sang with a lot of people. And then it's followed by All of My Heart, which is the great, probably, I would say the great ballad of the album. Just a beautiful, beautiful song with these kind of breathtaking stop moments in it. And then Forever Together, which is probably the toughest or more rockiest song on the album, and has these weird kind of sampled vocals where Martin kind of, his voice is manipulated to sound almost like devilish or something, but that's kind of an interesting song. And then the last track is basically a reprise of Look of Love that's just sort of an orchestral bit. But anyway, probably 40 minutes of pure 80s bliss. I mean, this, you can't get much better than this for early 80s stuff. So this is a used copy, but pretty soon they'll be reissuing deluxe editions of it, and in all their glory, 4 record sets and whatnot. So all right, so hey, thanks for joining me today, and another week, another recommend, and some new releases next week. Taylor Swift, Speak Now, Taylor's version, that comes out. So I'll be showing stuff next week. I see Bill Evans, King Gizzard, and De La Soul, Wham, Rory Gallagher up there. So thanks again. I'm gonna pass out. I don't know why. It must be the smoke. Don't call the medics. I'm okay for right now. Just, I need some water. Thanks. Have a great weekend. Peace all. Happy 4th in America. See you next time. Take care. Be careful with those fireworks.